So, do you remember the first time a game made you feel truly free? Not here's a big map and 500 objectives free, but real freedom. The kind that felt limitless, chaotic, and deeply personal. Maybe it was GTA San Andreas when you ignored every mission just to see if you could BMX off the tallest building in Los Santos. Or maybe it was Minecraft, punching trees to build a house so terrible, even your in-game neighbors would have reported you to the HOA. It didn't matter. Back then, games didn't tell you what to do. They asked, what do you want to do? Today though, let's be honest, freedom in games feels like a corporate buzzword. Sure, the maps are bigger, the graphics are stunning, but instead of discovering the world on your own, you're following quest markers like a stressed out intern trying to meet deadlines. Games promise you freedom, then hand you a to-do list. But it wasn't always like this. Let me take you back to a time when gaming wasn't about ticking boxes or unlocking achievements. It was about getting lost in the chaos. So let's start with the king of chaos, GTA San Andreas. Back in 2004, freedom wasn't just a feature, it was the game. You weren't just CJ, a guy trying to rebuilding his life. You were CJ, a bodybuilder, car thief, an amateur skydiver. Sometimes all at once. Remember how the gym wasn't just a mechanic? It was a lifestyle. You could bulk up, slim down, or eat so much pizza you passed out mid-mission. I vividly remember maxing out CJ's muscle stat just to intimidate NPCs at the burger joint. Did it help me finish the story faster? Of course not. Did it make me feel unstoppable? Absolutely. And then there were the cheats, or the glorious chaos of cheats. Flying cars, ride mode, infinite health. These weren't just ways to break the game, they were tools for storytelling. I once activated the pedestrians have weapons cheat and watched the entire city descend into anarchy. I spent hours surviving a post-apocalyptic Los Santos, hiding from NPCs armed with rocket launchers. Was it part of the game's main storyline? Not even close, but it was my story. That's the thing about games back then. They didn't micromanage you. They didn't give you 100 identical side quests to build immersion. They gave you a sandbox, threw in some toys and said, go nuts. And then there's Minecraft. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How does punching a tree for 10 minutes count as freedom? Yeah. But think about it. Minecraft wasn't just a game. It was a blank canvas. You could build a castle, dig a hole straight to bedrock, or spend hours breeding sheep in every color of the rainbow. One time, I built an entire city out of dirt blocks because I was just too lazy to get the proper materials. Did it look good? Absolutely not. But was it mine? 100%. The magic of Minecraft was simplicity. It didn't need a deep narrative or flashy graphics to hook you. Its freedom was pure, unfiltered creativity. If GTA was about chaos, Minecraft was about control. It was the freedom to build something from nothing, to shape the world around you. And when you added multiplayer to the mix, forget it. The possibilities were endless. But let's pause here for a second. What made these experiences so special? It wasn't just gameplay. It was the unpredictability, the sense of discovery. Every time you booted up the game, you had no idea what was going to happen. Sure, there were missions and objectives, but they were optional, almost an afterthought. The real fun came from stories you created yourself. Compare that to today's open world games. They're bigger, sure, more detailed, but they're also sterile. Maps are littered with markers, each one leading to a careful crafted activity. NPCs are programmed to deliver the same canned lines no matter how many times you interact with them. And let's not even talk about the endless fetch quests. Somewhere along the way, the chaos got replaced with control. And maybe that's the point. Developers don't trust us anymore. They're terrified of giving players too much freedom, of letting us break the game. Instead, they give us structured experiences disguised as open worlds. And yeah, they're fun, but they're not free. Take Assassin's Creed Valhalla for example. It's a beautiful game with a sprawling map, but every square inch is designed to keep you on a leash. Climb this tower, collect that treasure, kill this guy, rinse and repeat. It's the gaming equivalent of being on a guided tour. Sure, you see amazing things, but only because someone's leading the way. Now don't get me wrong, structure has its place. Without it, games can feel overwhelming or aimless. But there's a difference between structure and micromanagement. The best games strike a balance. They give you just enough guidance to keep you moving forward, but not so much that it feels like hand-holding. And that balance? It's what's missing from many modern games. Instead of trusting players to find their own fun, developers design worlds that look free but feel constrained. It's like being in a theme park. You're surrounded by amazing attractions, but you're stuck following the path they laid out for you. So what happened? How did we go from the chaos of San Andreas to the carefully curated experience of today's games? Part of it is technology. As graphics and AI have improved, so have our expectations. We want games to look realistic, to feel alive. But realism comes at a cost. The more detailed the world is, the harder it is to make it truly free. And then there's the business side of things. Games are more expensive to make than ever before, and developers can't afford to take risks. They rely on formulas and conventions that are proven to work, rather than experimenting with new ideas. It's why so many open world games feel the same. Climb the tower, unlock the map, complete the checklist. But maybe it's not all bad. Maybe the chaos isn't gone, it's just hiding. In indie games, in modding communities, in the moments where the players break free from the rules. And maybe, just maybe, the next great leap in gaming won't come from bigger worlds or better graphics. It'll come from developers willing to embrace the unpredictability, the creativity, the freedom that makes us fall in love with games in the first place. Freedom in games isn't just about big maps or endless exploration. Sometimes it's about the choices you make. The one that shape your story, the one that leave you staring at the screen, wondering if you did the right thing. It's the kind of freedom that isn't measured in square kilometers, but in emotional weight. And few games have mastered this like The Witcher 3. Let's talk about the Bloody Baron. If you've played The Witcher 3, you already know where this is going. On the surface, it's a simple quest. Find a man's missing wife and daughter. But the more you dig, the messier it gets. You discover that the Baron is an abusive alcoholic, that his family didn't just leave, they fled. And when you finally find his wife, she's under the control of a malevolent spirit. So, what do? Do you free the spirit, knowing it will destroy a nearby village? Or do you destroy it, condemning the Baron's wife, but saving the villagers? Neither choice feels good, and that's the brilliance of it. The Witcher 3 doesn't hand you a moral high ground. It forces you to live in the grey, to confront the consequences of your actions. Not just for the character involved, but for yourself as a player. This isn't freedom in the traditional sense. You're not building a castle or causing mayhem in a city, but it's freedom in a more personal, emotional way. It's the freedom to make choices that matter, to shape the story, even if that story is painful. And the best part, it feels real. Every character in The Witcher 3, from the lowliest peasant to the mightiest sorceress, has depth. They have hopes, fears, and motivations. When you make a choice, it doesn't feel like you're flipping a switch. It feels like you're affecting real lives. Contrast this with many other RPGs, where your choices boil down to good guy or bad guy. In many games, morality systems are as black and white as chessboards. Help the NPCs and you get a gold star. Betray them and you're suddenly on the fast track to becoming the next Darth Vader. But Witcher 3 doesn't judge you. It lets you make mistakes, live with them, and learn from them. And this isn't just limited to the main story. Even the side quests in Witcher 3 are packed with emotional depth. I remember one quest where you help a fisherman find his missing wife. It seems straightforward enough, until you discover that she's been turned into a monster. Now you have to decide. Do you kill her and put her out of her misery? Or do you try to find a way to reverse the curse, knowing it might not work? It's a small moment in a massive game, but it stayed with me because it felt personal. But let's step back for a moment. Why do these choices resonate so much? Maybe it's because in real life our choices often feel inconsequential? We go through the motions, making decisions that rarely seem to have a lasting impact. But in games, every choice matters. Every action has consequences. And that is incredibly empowering. It gives us a sense of control, a sense of agency that we rarely experience in our day-to-day lives. This is especially true in games that embrace moral ambiguity. In The Witcher 3, there are no clear heroes or villains. Everyone is flawed. Everyone has their own motivations, and everyone is capable of both good and evil. This complexity makes the world feel real, and it makes our choices feel significant. You're not just completing quests, you're shaping the lives of the people around you. And it's not just The Witcher 3. Take Red Dead Redemption 2 for example. At first glance, it's a game about cowboys, outlaws and shootouts, but at its core, it's a deeply personal story about redemption and identity. You play as Arthur Morgan, a man caught between loyalty to his gang and the desire to do what's right. And as the game progresses, you're faced with countless decisions that shape Arthur's journey. Do you help a struggling farmer, even if it puts you at risk? Do you forgive a fellow gang member who betrayed you? Or do you cut ties for good? These aren't easy choices, and the game doesn't offer easy answers. But that's what makes it so powerful. You're not just playing a character, you're becoming one. You're shaping Arthur's story, even as the game guides you towards the inevitable conclusion. And that conclusion, it's heartbreaking. No matter what choices you make, Arthur's fate is sealed. But it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. The relationships you build, the lives you touch, the moments of kindness and cruelty, all of it comes together and creates a story that feels ununiquely yours. This is the beauty of narrative freedom. It's not about giving players total control, it's about making them feel like they have control, even when they don't. It's about creating the illusion of freedom and using that illusion to tell stories that resonate on a deeply emotional level. But not every game gets that balance right. Some lean too heavily on player agency, sacrificing narrative depth in the progress. Others focus so much on telling a specific story that they leave little room for player choice. The best games strike a balance. They give you enough freedom to shape the story, but enough structure to keep it meaningful. Take Mass Effect for instance. At its best, it's a masterclass in player choice. Your decisions shape the galaxy, determining who lives, who dies, and how the story unfolds. But at its worst, it can feel formulaic. Every decision is neatly categorized as paragon or renegade, leaving little room for nuance. Compare that to The Last of Us Part 2, a game that offers almost no player choice but still manages to deliver a deeply impactful story. It's a game that challenges you, not by giving you decisions to make, but by forcing you to confront the consequences of the character's actions. It's a different kind of freedom, the freedom to interpret, to empathize, to reflect. So what's the takeaway here? Narrative freedom isn't about having infinite options. It's about having meaningful ones. It's about creating stories that feel personal, even if they're universal. It's about giving players the tools to shape their journey, even if the destination is already decided. And at its best, it's about more than just storytelling. It's about connection. It's about empathy. It's about understanding that every choice, no matter how small, has the power to change the world around you. Freedom in games isn't just about shaping stories. Sometimes it's about shaping the world itself. And no game embodies this better than Breath of the Wild. When it launched in 2017, it wasn't just a new Zelda game, it was a revolution. It didn't just give you a map to explore, it gave you tools, systems, and a physics engine that encouraged creativity and experimentation. For the first time in years, a game made me feel like I was discovering something on my own. Let's talk about that first moment when you leave the Shrine of Resurrection and step into the vast expanse of Hyrule. No question markers, no mini-map, just a distant mountain, a rusted sword, and a world begging to be explored. The freedom wasn't in what you could do, it was in how you chose to do it. Want to climb that mountain? Sure, but don't forget to cook food to keep warm. Want to defeat a group of enemies? You can use your sword, or you can roll a boulder down a hill and crush them all at once. The world didn't just allow creativity, it rewarded it. One of my favorite memories in Breath of the Wild happened entirely by accident. I was exploring a forest looking for Korok seeds when I saw a thunderstorm rolling in. I was about to switch my metal weapon to avoid being struck by lightning when I had an idea. What if I used the lightning? I dropped a metal sword near a group of bokoblins and waited. and a few seconds later, a bolt struck the sword and electrocuted every enemy in sight. It was chaotic, unexpected, and entirely unscripted. And that's what made it special. But Breath of the Wild isn't the only game that understands the power of experimentation. So let's talk about Minecraft. On the surface, it's a simple game. You punch trees, build shelters, and survive the night. But dig deeper and you'll find one of the most open-ended experiences in gaming history. It's a game where you can build anything, go anywhere, and create stories entirely on your own. Want to build a massive castle? Go for it. Want to dig straight down and see how far you can go? Sure, but don't blame the game when you fall into lava. Minecraft doesn't tell you what to do. It trusts you to figure it out. One time I decided to recreate the village I grew up in. Every house, every street, every tree. It was a labor of love, one block at a time. But halfway through, I got bored and decided to blow the whole thing up with GT. Why? I guess because I could. And that's the beauty of Minecraft. It doesn't judge you. It doesn't care if you're building a masterpiece or causing chaos. It just gives you the tools and lets you decide how to use them. But let's not forget about the smaller, more intimate moments. Like the first time you hear creepers hiss behind you and panic build a wall to protect yourself, or the quiet satisfaction of planting crops and watching them grow. These moments aren't scripted. They are born out of the systems the game provides, and that's what makes them so memorable. Contrast this with games that try to fake freedom. You know, the ones, massive maps filled with icons, each one leading to carefully designed activities. Sure, you can explore, but only within the boundaries the developers have set. There's no room for creativity, no room for discovery. It's like being given a coloring book and told to stay inside the lines. But then there's games that strike the balance. Take No Man's Sky. When it first launched, it was criticized for being empty and directionless. Sure, you could explore an infinite number of procedural generated planets, but what's the point? It felt more like a tech demo than a game. But over the years, the developers kept working, adding new mechanics, new goals, and new ways to engage with the universe. Now, it's a game where you can build bases, trade with alien species, and explore galaxies at your own pace. It's still vast and open-ended, but it's no longer aimless. It found a way to give players a sense of purpose without sacrificing freedom. And that's the secret to great exploration games. Balance. Too much freedom and the game feels overwhelming, too much structure and it feels restrictive. The best games find a way to guide players without holding their hand. They give you the tools to experiment, but they don't tell you how to use them. Take Kerbal Space Program for example. It's a game about building rockets and exploring space. But it's also a game about failure. Your first rocket will probably explode. So will your second. And your third. But every failure teaches you something. Maybe your staging was off. Maybe you forgot to account for gravity. Whatever the case, the game doesn't punish you, it encourages you to try again. It's not just about reaching the stars, it's about the journey, the trial and error, the joy of figuring it out on your own. And that's what makes these games so powerful. They don't just give you freedom, they give you the tools to create your own experiences. They trust you to make mistakes, to experiment, and to find your own fun. And in doing so, they remind us why we fell in love with games in the first place. But not every game gets this balance right. Some lean too heavily on freedom, leaving players feeling lost or aimless. Others focus so much on structure that they forget the importance of the player agency. The best games understand that freedom isn't about doing everything, it's about doing something meaningful. Freedom in games isn't always about creativity or exploration. Sometimes it's about struggle. The kind of freedom that doesn't hand you anything on a silver platter. It's the freedom to fail, to learn, and to try again. And few games embody this philosophy better than Elden Ring. Let me set the stage. You dropped into a vast, mysterious world with no quest markers, no glowing arrows, no kindly NPC to tell you where to go or what to do. You step outside the first safe zone, and within 5 minutes, a giant golden knight on horseback obliterates you. Welcome to Elden Ring. The game doesn't care if you're ready. It doesn't care if you understand its systems yet. It throws you into the deep end and says, swim. At first, it's infuriating. No, scratch that, it's infuriating. You'll die to enemies you didn't see coming, fall off cliffs because you misjudged a jump, and spend hours wandering the map because you're just too stubborn to look up a guide. But then something magical happens. You start to figure things out. You notice patterns in enemy attacks. You discover hidden paths and shortcuts. You piece together fragments of the world's lore, not because the game spoon-fed it to you, but because you earned it. The first time I defeated a boss in Elden Ring, I felt like I'd conquered Mount Everest. I'd spent hours learning its attack patterns, fine-tuning my strategy and upgrading my weapons. And when it finally went down, I didn't just feel accomplished, I felt free. Free from the doubt that has crept in during the dozens of failed attempts. Free from frustration that had made me want to quit. It wasn't just a victory, it was a transformation. But why does this kind of freedom resonate so deeply? Maybe it's because it mirrors real life in a way that most games don't. Life is messy. It's challenging. It doesn't come with a guidebook or a set of guaranteed wins. And that's what makes success so rewarding. Elden Ring captures this feeling perfectly. It doesn't just give you a world to explore. It gives you a world to conquer. One painful step at a time. But Elden Ring isn't an outlier. From Software, the studios behind it, has built an entire legacy around this philosophy. Games like Dark Souls and Sekiro are infamous for the difficulty, but they also celebrate it for the freedom they offer. It's not the kind of freedom that lets you build castles or tame wild animals. It's the freedom to approach challenges in your own way. Want to fight a boss head on? Go for it. Want to grind for hours until you're overleveled? Sure. Want to cheese the fight by exploiting a bug? The game doesn't care. It just rewards persistence. One of my favorite Dark Souls memories involves the infamous Ornstein and Smaug fight. If you've played the game, you know what I'm talking about. It's a 2-on-1 battle against a massive knight and his lightning-wielding partner, and it's brutal. I must have died at least 50 times before I finally figured out a strategy that worked. When I landed the final blow, I didn't just feel like I had beaten a boss. I felt like I'd beaten the game itself. And that's the beauty of From Software games. They don't hand you victories. They make you earn them. And in doing so, they make every triumph feel like a genuine accomplishment. It's not about the loot or the XP, it's about the journey. But this kind of freedom isn't for everyone. For some players, the frustration outweighs the reward, and that's okay. Not every game needs to be a grueling test of patience. But for those who embrace it, the payoff is unmatched. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest freedom comes from overcoming the greatest challenges. Let's talk about another game that embraces the freedom to struggle. Hollow Knight. On the surface, it's a charming, hand-drawn Metroidvania about a tiny bug exploring a forgotten kingdom. But don't let the cute art style fool you. This game is hard. Its world is sprawling and cryptic. Its enemies are relentless and its bosses will test you every ounce of your skill. But like Elden Ring, Hollow Knight doesn't hold your hand. It trusts you to figure things out on your own. It doesn't bombard you with tutorials or map markers. Instead, it drops you into a beautifully desolated world and says, good luck. And that trust is what makes the game so rewarding. Every shortcut you discover, every power-up you unlock, every boss you defeat, it all feels earned. One of the most memorable moments in Hollow Knight is the fight against the Radiants, the game's true final boss. It's a brutal, multi-phase battle that tests everything you've learned throughout the game. When I finally defeated it after dozens of attempts, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief and pride. It wasn't just a victory, it was a culmination of everything I'd worked for. This kind of freedom through struggle, is rare in modern games. Most developers are afraid to frustrate players, afraid to let them fail. They design systems that guide you gently towards success, that minimize setbacks and maximize rewards. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it also takes away something important, the thrill of earning your victories. But not all challenges need to be combat focused. Games like The Witness and Outer Wilds offer freedom through intellectual struggle. In The Witness, you're dropped onto an island filled with puzzles, each one more complex than the last. There are no hints, no tutorials, just you, the puzzles, and your own determination. Similarly, Outer Wilds is a game about exploration and discovery. You're tasked with unraveling the mysteries of a dying solar system, but the game doesn't give you a checklist or a quest log. It trusts you to piece things together on your own. These games remind us that struggle doesn't always have to be about life or death battles. Sometimes it's about solving a puzzle, finding a hidden path, or uncovering a story. And in every case, the reward is the same. A sense of accomplishment that comes from knowing you did it yourself. So, what's the takeaway here? Freedom through challenge isn't just about difficulty. It's about trust. It's about giving players the tools they need to succeed, then stepping back and letting them figure it out themselves. It's about creating moments of frustration, yes, but also moments of triumph. It's about showing players that they are capable of more than they think. And maybe that's the ultimate freedom. The freedom to grow. Thanks for watching.